And we are back. Right, part 2. So, in this episode and the previous part, we were talking about principles and quotes to live by, and things that help us in our day-to-day living and running businesses and making sure we're better people and humans for the people around us. Now, there's one thing I wanted to talk about, and I've spoke to quite a few of the guests and Matt about this at length on the pods before. And I don't know if it's the way that maybe I presented it, so it annoys people or winds some people up. But my honest intention is not to provoke emotion in the situation. It's more just to identify how things and people are and how they present themselves in the world. So I've said it before: is men are born without value, whereas women are born with value. And men have to build themselves up, and women are as they are and are born and built with that inherent value. And I came across one of the motivational speech quotes things whatever you see on Instagram the other day, and it literally hit the nail on the head. And I think if I presented it in this manner to most people, they would understand it a bit better rather than it provoking too much emotion for them. So it says, women are born at the top of the mountain, whereas men are born in the valleys around. A man is judged on how high he climbs, whereas women are judged on how far they fall. Men have much to gain, women have much to lose. Masculinity is built and femininity is preserved. And that's, for me, I think that hits the nails on the head.
Two things. Why do you think people have issue with that sentiment, how we've expressed it previously? And two, what do they have issue with? Whichever question you want to answer first.
So, on the first point, I think it's because people are too nice these days. Well, maybe not these days, but maybe the people that we're speaking to are too nice, and they don't want to admit, and they feel it offensive. It's the big fucking O word again. Offensive to put someone down based on their gender or whatever it fucking is. Whereas I am a male, I see this for how it is. From what we're saying there, the women appear to be the better people. Surely, if that was my intention or opinion, I'd want to be on that side of things, to be a woman. But I'm not interested at all. I think it's great for both sides. I'm glad that I've been put in this position where I need to grow and build myself up as a person. It's great. It's fucking enjoyable every day. Maybe not enjoyable, but it's exciting, shall we say? And I love doing it. Even if we're going to have the hard days and you got the shit days and nights that you have sometimes going through the stress, but I know it'll all be worth it in the end. And I thoroughly, as I said, maybe not at the time, but I enjoy the process and going through it.
Because from the pushback that I've witnessed to, because you and I both agree on the principle of this, the pushback I've seen is that people are like, oh, that's quite unfair on men.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Which is very interesting because it's rare for people to be defending men.
So, I grew up with a family of 4. So, one thing, my parents were always very good to me. They've looked after me, throughout my whole life. They've, been, tough love, which I appreciate, especially now I'm at this level. I'm so glad I was, because I see a lot of people around me that are struggling to even, do the basic things because they've never been forced to do it. But there's one thing I remember so often when I was a kid of me saying to my dad, oh, that's not fair. And my dad would always say, life isn't fair. Get over it. And it's true. What does that mean, fair? Fucking, it'd be great if everything was fair, but nothing is. So to me, it's like a nothing point. When someone says that, I'm like, you may as well have not even spoke, because it's irrelevant saying that's not fair. Yeah, obviously it's not fucking fair, but it's not fair that we pay taxes. It's not fair that our water is controlled by a private limited company, but it is. Do you know what I mean? What are you going to do about it? Are you going to specifically do anything about it? If you're not, shut the fuck up and get on with it. Go and do what you can do in order to do what you can do and have to do in order to get what you need within the confines of the law.
So we've got 2 parts of that quote from there. We've got men need to be built up. So we've addressed that previously when we're talking about a man needs to be everything that is what everyone would want from, I'm not going to say good masculinity, I'm going to say masculinity, which is honourable, loyal, dependable, resolute, determined, ambitious, kind, gentle, empathetic,
Brave.
sympathetic, strong, brave. So we've answered that. What from that statement are we talking about? We're saying that femininity needs to be preserved.
So we see it with, when they say that if a man has sex with a lot of women, what's it? It's the key.
Key in the lock. So if a woman has sex with a lot of men, that's a lock can be opened by any key.
Exactly. So if a key can open many locks, it's a master key.
Yep.
But if a lock can be opened by any key,
it's a bad lock.
It's a shit lock. And that comes down to what we see in, even the sexual market is, for men, they are praised, maybe not by women, but subconsciously, even if they don't like it, in general, women won't want to be with a virgin. They'll want to be with
Correct.
a man who has experience. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't necessarily think I'd want to be with a virgin, because you want them to have a tad of experience. But what you don't want as a male is to walk into a pub, a bar, or anywhere you're going and knowing that your girlfriend has had sex with everyone in the room, or even a couple of people in the room. You want to know that she's got a low body count, and you haven't got to be in a situation where you might be with another bloke and he's like, yeah, I've fucked your missus.
Yeah, no way in hell.
Like, to me, that's massively off-putting.
Yeah, and which we've witnessed from the sidelines when that's happened with people higher up in the previous company you and I used to work with when that happened.
Did I miss something?
Yeah, I think it might have been after you left. One of the guys started going out with a woman who's now his wife. They've been married for, God knows, 6 years. But at the time, so this was like 8 years ago, he started going out with her. And so he was one of my direct superiors. And they were in a meeting once, and he was saying something that was annoying someone who was your direct superior previously. You can guess who that was.
Direct superior? Or
well, further up the chain.
Little Pete.
Well, there you go. I didn't want to say the name, but there you go. And my guy was saying something. The other guy didn't like it, so he went, "Oh yeah, well, I've banged your missus effectively." And my guy said, "Okay, you say that again, I'm going to put your face through this table." And I was just like, and considering who my guy was, he would have very easily put his face through that table. So yeah, they're just like, yeah, that's not good. That's not good when you're at that point.
Yeah, and you never want to be in a scenario where that can ever be used against you.
Well, yeah, and also because that's jealousy in men, if expressed, is incredibly destructive.
Exactly.
It's physically very destructive, to either to objects or to people. Whereas with women, they just get very manipulative and break things apart.
Yeah, they do the
emotionally,
psychological catty thing,
which is can be as devastating, just not as visible.
Yeah.
So there is a slight discrepancy on average between the number of partners that women want from a man and the amount of partners a man wants from a woman. So a man doesn't necessarily want a virgin.
No.
Because he's like, well, she's not going to know what she's doing. But he doesn't want very many either.
But if you had to choose, and there was only 2 women in the world, one that was a virgin and one with a huge body count, that would be only 2 options. What would you go for? Because
how huge are we talking?
One you can teach, one you can't change.
How high are we talking as a huge body count?
100, 200.
Well,
20, 30,
it's not
40, 50.
Okay.
People
so,
you know. Because remember, the virgin can be taught, but the one with the huge body count, that can never change. That is fixed forever.
Okay. So,
and you don't know how many times you might come into a situation where that affects
so,
your relationship.
So overarching principles is the start of people is that if you're in a relationship with someone or you're starting to be in a relationship with someone, their history is none of your fucking business. Because it doesn't matter. Because whatever the answer is, if you roll the dice on that, you have literally on a dice, 1 is the number that is the best for you, because that's the lowest number on the dice and the lowest number they're going to have done. If you're rolling a dodecahedron, which is a 20-sided dice, you have a 5% chance of hitting the number you want.
Mm-hmm.
You have a 95% chance of hitting a number that's not going to make you happy. So don't roll that dice. Do not open that door. Because there's a strong chance that you're going to end up hurting yourself by asking that question. And if your partner is honest with you, which you should always want them to be, then it end up inadvertently hurting you. But you're actually hurting yourself. Mm-hmm. They're not hurting you, okay? So that's my advice. First of all, do not ask these questions because you're not going to be happy. You're going to make yourself unhappy. Take that from me, from experience. If you ask these questions, it makes you very upset and very angry.
Not if you ask ask at the outset.
However...
Because if you ask at the outset, you could be saving yourself a lot of trouble.
And also, if you ask at the outset, you're not emotionally involved yet.
That's what I mean.
However, yes, there is that other perspective. Other Macs had the very interesting perspective that don't count. Don't count. The number is irrelevant. Mm-hmm. So I thought, which is I think is probably...
Remember, he's young, without a family, and is not married.
He's only 4 years younger than you, mate.
Mm-hmm. I remember, but I would say when I was younger, I didn't care. Didn't even think about it. But that was because I was also not in a situation where I thought I might ever marry or have children or anything like that.
Also, Max is an anomaly of a human.
Exactly.
So he functions differently in mostly fantastic ways and occasionally a few destructive ways.
No, also, if you're... I haven't asked the question. If I'm forced to use black and white, it's going to be obviously the inexperienced one. Absolutely. Partly because I've, from being inexperienced myself and being my first girlfriend, you learn together, and then being a little bit more experienced, and then with people who aren't experienced, absolutely. It's a just heap, praise and suggest and guide, and it's great. But I think for me, that would come from my brain, which maybe is a wrong avenue to pursue, is why the high number. Because if it was, it's 30 people over 10 years because I was just really curious, I really enjoyed it, I had a great time, it was wonderful, I'd be like, okay, cool. Whereas if there's other people that I know, that I'm not acquainted with anymore, but I have known, is, because I was abused when I was a kid. So ergo meaning that their brain is wired wrong. Yeah.
Which, unfortunately...
So they seek that validation.
Yeah, which unfortunately for females, either from low sexual abuse or poor parenting, they seek validation by leading with sex. So which is often the case. So if that's the case, then it's like, can't be part of this.
But it's also, my point on the matter is, if we go back to the women are judged on how far they fall. Now, we've all been places where, you've got women. Now, I'm a lot different now than I was, say, 5-10 years ago, in terms of, what I think is acceptable. Mainly, probably because I'm thinking of people that, women in terms of being a wife and a mother to my children, whereas back then I didn't think about that.
Yep.
But especially these days, you go out and women are basically wearing their thongs, like, on show.
Mate, the younger generation with all their fucking corset tops is just
and it's
creepy as hell.
I get the freedom, do whatever you want, like, blah, 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 but I don't look at that and think, I respect that lady.
No one does.
Exactly, and for the lady themselves, I get they're trying to garner attention and stuff like that, but in my experience, you don't need the attention you're going to garner by dressing like that.
It's not the attention you want.
It's not the attention you want. You're actually better off doing it the other way.
100%.
Because you're going to attract the right type of person. Now, obviously, if you don't want that type of man, then again, crack on, go out wearing next to nothing, but you're only going to attract one type of person, which is a male that probably isn't going to be good for you or your children in the future.
See, for me, I completely agree. For me personally, like a corset top or someone wearing like a really short skirt does nothing for me compared to like I like a woman in a turtleneck and like suit trousers. Love it.
Yeah.
Because if you can dress effectively like a dude and still be feminine, you're fucking feminine.
Yeah.
And
it shows a strong element of respect for yourself, which is nice. And because at the end of the day, if you are going to look for them to be having them, in a long relationship, one, they're going if they respect themselves, they're more likely to respect you, and they're more likely to look after and respect your children. Because I think, was it you I was talking about the other day, where, believe it or not, females are more likely to kill their children than men are.
To kill their own children?
To kill their own children.
Really? Why is that?
I was listening to Just Pearly Things.
Yeah.
And it was due to females' jealous nature. I'll need to get the facts up, and I'll try and find it for the next podcast. But that's what they were saying, is men tend to be the protectors. Yeah, see if you can get some receipts up. But it was crazily interesting. Because you never would have thought that.
So I know about killing other women's children. I know I've heard that women kill other women's children more than men do.
So that may have been the fact.
Yeah. Oh. Side tangent. Spousal murder is 50-50.
Really?
Nice.
There we go. We can agree on one thing.
Yeah.
It's 50-50.
Whoa, matricide. This is a great word.
What's matricide when they kill their own children?
The murder of a mother at the hands of her own child.
The murder of a mother. Oh, so when the child kills the mother.
Yeah, interesting.
Jesus.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. Yes, I'm not saying anything about their own children, but I've heard the fact about women, exactly the same thing about jealousy, where if they're looking after someone else's child, they are more likely to wait. They're going to wait. I think it's like 4 times longer to go to the hospital or call the hospital than if the same injury happened to their own child.
Really?
Fascinating.
But that's crazy. But anyway, we've come off a bit of a tangent from our principles and quotes.
I think the point I was trying to get to with the quote is that we've established what needs to be we've defined exactly what it needs to be masculine. Yeah. How are we defining what it is to be feminine?
What, in terms of the original quote?
Yeah, obviously, Carson, you know that I agree with you. I just want to play devil's advocate to get it out there.
I think preservation of the sexual energy. I think that's a good point. So that goes back to the point of being promiscuous. If they're less promiscuous, they're less likely to want to. If you're in a relationship, they're probably less likely to choose that as a resort if you're in a bad patch, rather than working it out together. They might think, oh fuck it, I'll just go shag someone else. If they've had many partners before, they've probably got more of a pool to choose from, so therefore it's an easier option to take quite often. And as we know, a lot of the population chooses to take the easy route rather than the hard route to make things better. Women in general need to protect themselves more than men, just because they're obviously physically weaker than we are in general, before we get how to go about that. So I think in terms of femininity, I can only say with the things that I sort of look for when I'm looking for a relationship, is you want someone to be fit, fun and friendly. Do you know what I mean? Someone who's emotionally intelligent, so you know she's going to have your back when you need it. She's going to look after herself and look after you. She's not going to be too overly argumentative. Obviously, if you're going to be in a partnership with someone, you want someone who's going to be able to trust your lead. However, not just go blindly ahead with everything you say. You want, a bit of pushback
100%.
to ensure that you're doing the best thing for yourself and your family. But ultimately, if she can't trust and respect what you're doing, then it's going to be difficult for you to do the latter for her.
Yeah, so I think for me it would be something I always heard, which is that women need to be true to themselves and actually take the time to figure out exactly what they want, as opposed to just following what society dictates they should be, what their friends are doing, what everyone else is doing. I think that's where the challenge arises for them more than us, is that they've
got it all to lose. They're born, as we said at the top, and they've only got it to lose, whereas we can gain it.
And also because
we can only gain.
Women's strength comes from their unity together. Ours is where we are bastions of our own might, and then we meet like now to then go, great, I've got greater insight, I've got greater strength, I've got more troops, I want to return back to my keep and shore up the defences even more, or go out and siege something else. Whereas I think women is more like they all do it together, so then that's where their strength comes from. So if you're staying true to yourself, you're thinking, okay, society's telling me that I should be sleeping around all the time because I should be on the pill because I'm having sex with all of these people. There's a sexual revolution that happened which freed this, so I need to go to university and get education and take to focus entirely on my career, take a job so that I'm then, there's still the wage gap, even though I'm, but women are kicking the hell out of men in education all the way up, and they're carrying it all the way up to masters and PhD levels, which are then replacing the men that were in universities. Most people in universities are women. Same thing with managers. Most managers in corporate positions are female from this point up, all the way going up from there. So then men are actually being pushed out of the workforce as well as the education system. Focus on all of that as we're going through. Keep working, keep pushing, push men off. Don't need men, don't need a man to hold me down. Just people who are just a fling or whatever, some having sex. Just keep focusing on pleasure and hedonism. So by the time I'm actually in my late 30s, and actually like, shit, where are my family gone? Gone, because she's earning a shit ton of money. She has no social life. She doesn't have that many friends left overall. She's the only men she knows are ones who just want to fuck because they're not interested in actually having a partner at that point there. So what she actually wanted all along, she realised, oh shit, I didn't want money or pleasure for pleasure's sake. I wanted to have a family at this point, and she hasn't got it because she's been focused entirely on instant gratification and doing what society is telling her she should be doing.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, especially when I speak to males and females. It's realistically, men don't need women to operate in the world. We can still have children without being in a family. Not that I think that's right. I don't think that's right at all. But it is possible quite easily for us to do that. And obviously for women, it tends to be the opposite. But what I think is interesting is when I speak to most males is they don't think I'm a young independent man. Do you know what I mean? They don't spout that bollocks. They're like, I know I need a female in my life in order to live and have a better life. Whereas on the flip side, you get the females that are like, I'm a young independent woman, I don't need no man, like all that bullshit. And realistically, they're the ones that tend to need us in a family role more. And I think it's mad that how, as I said, that the men don't need the women, in my opinion, as much as the women need the men. But the men aren't sat there going, we don't need you. They're going,
saying, I want one.
We need you and we want you.
Yeah.
Whereas whether it's the feminine push or something like that, and I actually see it as arrogance in the sort of feminine aspect of saying, I don't need you. Because at the end of the day, we're all interdependent. Anyone, unless you want to go and live as a savage in the woods on your own, you need someone. At the end of the day, who's driving your food to the shop? Who's growing your food? Who's driving it to the shop that you go and drive to buy? We're all interdependent. We all need each other to live in a society. So I think it's very poisonous that that kind of rhetoric is pushed, discussed, and even encouraged, because it's got a huge detriment to especially young males, but also young females.
Absolutely.
Because as we said before, it's a race to the bottom for sexual promiscuity in women, because men will raise their value to the lowest possible standard they need to in order to attract women.
100%.
And if women are lowering the bar down here, then men are thinking, oh, brilliant, that's as good as I have to be. Whereas if females push the bar up here, men are like, fuck, well, I need to get here.
Absolutely.
In order to achieve that.
Absolutely. And I will agree and disagree with your previous statement about we don't need women to operate. We do everything ultimately for sex.
Yeah.
In regards to us, so we do need women because that's the driving force behind everything.
Yeah.
If we're talking about the physical act of making a kid, we need to be with them for, 30 seconds. And then we're done.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky. And then we can do that.
If she's lucky.
You can do that every day.
Yeah.
So you could, if the stars align, you can make 365 kids a year.
Probably more.
For a man. For a woman, 1 a year. Unless they're triplets. So let's say 3.
One pregnancy.
Yeah, 1 pregnancy. However many zygotes get fertilised. 1. So that's where the difference comes. Whereas you need people to have, women need people, men, whatever. They need people to have a child. Man doesn't need anything. He just needs that copulation for that particular point. Shoot his load, and then he can scamper off into the wilderness, never to be seen again. So to promote that women should have sex in that same way and use contraception that would be much more reliable, but equally have much more immediate and long-term negative side effects. It's got to be a better way than that.
Yeah, 100%.
And is that staying true to themselves?
That's the thing. And I was watching a video the other day of this chap, and it was, a very young, because it tends to be the younger ones that have, fallen into the feminist rhetoric trap. And he was saying, why do you think about, you don't need men and blah, blah, blah. And they said, we don't need men to be able to live our lives because, we can make our own rules and, make our own decisions and do our own things and, force these systems to put in place. And he was like, okay, brilliant. So what do you do if the people don't follow those systems? He said, well, we'll get them arrested. Okay, so how are you going to get them arrested? And they said, so if you're controlling men, how are you going to arrest them? Because in general, females are weaker than the males. So how are you going to force the men to do this against their will? Well, we'll get the police.
And what are the police made up of?
And 90% of the police, for obvious reasons, they are men.
Yep.
Because they're the ones that have to force these situations. As much as it's not nice, they're the ones that have to force it. So at the end of the day, and his point sort of moved on to is that men allow the feminist agenda. Without us allowing it, they wouldn't be able to have it. Whereas it'll be very difficult for females to push the feminist agenda on males without their acceptance. Because of the obvious physical differences.
Well, that's the thing. Who voted in affirmative action? Who voted in all of that in 1960s? So if we're going from the idea of the patriarchy, stupid word,
Yes.
but if we're going by that, and up until a certain amount of time, men have been controlling everything, as feminists will say.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So if that's true, then feminism was allowed to happen by the patriarchy.
Yeah.
If patriarchy is this all-encompassing
control system.
then feminism was allowed to happen by the patriarchy. That's
Exactly,
it. That's
yeah,
it. There's nothing more to it than that.
You tried saying that though.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, there's
castrated.
yeah, no, but yeah. Publicly, you probably have a problem with that. If you say it one-on-one, they'd probably just get really angry.
Yeah. Cognitive dissonance, as we discussed before.
Do you know why I actually think that women who are vocally feminist are? So women who are feminist because... So the ones who don't identify as feminists, but just believe that because they think, people should be equal.
Yeah, of course.
You won't even know about it.
Mm.
I think the ones who are verbally about it, they are filtering for a certain kind of man.
Yeah. Well, they can bully and...
No, they're challenging straight away.
Oh, really?
My theory is that they are challenging immediately because they're aggressive straight away because they're being like men and women, whatever. Any man that can overcome that or push them back with argument or whatever from there, they'll be like, oh, this is the man for me, because they're putting a challenge out straight away. With flirtation for men and women, women are always, their flirtation is just testing you to see, they test to see if you're good enough to flirt back. If you can play it with like verbal witticisms, if they can beat you all the time with verbal witticisms or anything verbally, they're not going to be interested in you. If they can beat you now and again, but not all the time, because you can win most of the time, they'll be like, this is the right kind of man. Because it's not... Women need to test men to ensure that they are going to be strong enough to deal with anything that life throws at them.
Yep.
So that when I'm pregnant... And at any stage of pregnancy, I'm going to need to rely on him. I can do that utterly.
He's going to look after me.
If I can beat him all the time, that means other people can beat him. Whereas if he can beat me, then he can probably beat most other people. Obviously, not all the time, but if he can always be beaten by me, then anyone's going to roll over him.
No, I agree with that point. I do agree with that point 100%.
So I think that's where the testing and the flirtation comes from, because it's all, these silly little jokes or little digs or little things like that. It's all these little tests that they do just to see if a man is worthy of their time and attention. Yeah. Which is it's a wonderful game. It's a fucking great game.
That's a good idea. Because again, you need to at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And men do the same thing on the flip side. Testing how loving and how the women may look after them, to how they look after their children, how intelligent they are.
Yeah, intelligence, curious.
I can't remember who said it was, but it was your children are going to be as smart as your wife or something like that. Like, it tends to be the mum that sets the bar for intelligence. Can't remember where I heard or read that, but I thought it was quite an interesting fact. And also for me, I always think, in a partner, would I be happy if I had a daughter for her to be like a mother? Because a lot of the time they are going to be, aren't they? The majority of the time. So if you're with someone and you wouldn't like that to be your daughter, that sounded fucking weird.
Children inherit their intelligence from their mother, not their father.
Yeah. So if your mother, they basically set the bar. So if your mother's like a university educated person, most of the time that's the bar that your children are going to be reaching for.
Fascinating. That's really interesting.
What does it actually say?
There's a few here. So you've got The Independent, 2019. A mother's genetics determines how clever her children are. Father makes no difference. The mum's side of the genetics determine how brainy or clever a kid is, and the father's genes make little to no difference in honing a child's intelligence.
Now, where is that from? Because we all know these days there is a massive push for males to be pushed out of everything.
You've got.
So is that a government or what's it called?
So you've got the Independent.
PSYOP.
You've got the Independents over here.
100%. What, the Independent newspaper?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck them.
2019, and then you've got the Times of India.
The Times, which is probably the same as the Times in the UK. So again, fuck them.
Another one. Medicinette, the 2022. So this one's interesting. This is actually the traits in general. So you've got mitochondrial diseases. So these are all things you inherit from your mother. So that's DNA defects or mutations, eye conditions, physical features, menopause and menstruation timing, intelligence, sleeping patterns, aging, ability to lose or gain weight. So that's all from the mother.
Yeah.
Very interesting. This requires further study, I would say. But that's very interesting.
Point to look at. But yeah, I would be careful with looking, especially for people like the Independent. And
well, I'm just doing this because you brought up the point, my friend.
I know. It's easy for me to say that, isn't it?
Indeed, and for us to say, Mr. Max. That finishes part 2.
Excellent.
That's very good, my friend.
Always, my friend.
Likewise to yourself.
Time.
Absolutely, we'll finish off from there. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe as always.
Remember, it's the big one next time, episode 30.
Episode 30. Let's do this.
Join in.
Peace out.